afternoon and welcome to Virtual Parent Academy. I'm Dr. Deborah Taylor-Long, Coordinator of Equity, Family, and Community Engagement. And I'm just so pleased to be here with you this afternoon for our very first launch of this academy. We want to ensure that we are giving parents the support that they need to be successful at home with their children, as well as helping us be successful with them here in the school district. So I'm so elated and delighted to have you here this afternoon. While we are on live this afternoon, if you have any questions, please type them in because I have some help that's going to help me make sure that we can try to answer some of your questions today. If we don't get to all of them today, it's okay because we'll be back. So let's get started. This afternoon, I have with me Miss Ashley Dowdell, and Miss Dowdell is with us from the student support section of the district. And today we're going to be talking about social emotional learning and mental health. You know, we're living in a time now that we're not used to, and it's just different this time of the pandemic. And so a lot of us are having some maybe issues or some trying times dealing with what we're going through. And so here at the School District of Indian River County, we want to ensure that you understand that we are here as a community partner as well as a school. So I'd like to introduce right now Miss Ashley Dowdell. Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
And thank you for being here this afternoon. I really appreciate it. And I know that our virtual audience does as well. So when we talk about social emotional learning and mental health, what exactly does that mean?
So when we're talking about social emotional learning, we're really thinking about our emotions and our feelings and how all of that relates to our everyday lives, and they can change and fluctuate throughout the day, and just being mindful of those feelings and those emotions and how we can proceed from there.
Okay, very good. So you heard that. Social emotional learning deals with the feelings. And we know that we have a lot of feelings going on, especially right now with the stress and the concern about what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, because we're pretty close. It is December. So as I listen to you talk about social emotional learning, I began to think about some things that could possibly relate to that. When we talk about dealing with how we're feeling, dealing with our emotions, and how to handle those emotions. So we have this thing called the feeling thermometer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So if you think about, especially like you have mentioned, in the light of everything going on right now, the first thing that we do when we're not feeling well is we take out a thermometer and check our temperature, whether it's us as adults or our children.
Absolutely.
So we check our temperature to see what is it. If it's running high, then we're probably not feeling well. We're probably going to maybe check in with the doctor, maybe go get that COVID test right now.
Yes.
The same can be true for our feelings. So we have a feeling thermometer. We can think of it in those terms. So if we're feeling cool as a cucumber, so we're low on that thermometer, everything's going well. But you hear the phrase like hot under the collar or that person's a hothead. Well, their feelings are elevated. So on that feeling thermometer, they're feeling very hot. So think of it as terms of cool, we're doing well, it's cool, baby, or hot. I'm just ready to just explode with frustration and anger.
Yeah, so watch out, get out of the way, right? So when we talk about frustration and anger, one of the things that I think about, and this was something that I heard as we were meeting to prepare for this, because we did meet to prepare, we just not came unprepared for you today, was we talked about this term called flooding.
Yes.
Can you explain that to our parents and our audience, what flooding is and how we can kind of work with that?
Absolutely. So when you're thinking of that term flooding, the first thing that comes to my mind is you have a dam or a levee that is broken, and all of that water just comes rushing out all at once, right?
Okay.
And so the same thing can happen with our emotions. Sometimes we just feel so overwhelmed with everything. It's coming at us, you know, one after the other, that we just explode. We feel so frustrated that we just can't keep it in anymore. We've been suppressing it. We've been trying to deal with it on our own, and sometimes it just comes out, whether, again, that's us as adults or our kids. And so when we are flooding, we are experiencing that and need some tools to help get us back, get that dam back up and built, and so that way we can be, you know, ready to rock and roll and deal with the issues that we have in front of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only does that happen at home, but it also happens for your children at school. And at school, it's a little different because as a school district, you know, we have guidance counselors, we have student support specialists or resource specialists. We have individual social workers, school psychologists that try to help students learn strategies and give them tools in their toolbox to help them kind of deal with the anger or what we see as it's projected out behaviors. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So that part that we didn't refer to earlier that I should have spent a few minutes on that we're going to touch on now is the learning piece.
Yes.
So social emotional learning. And so in the classrooms, we actually, Florida has aligned with the CASEL framework, which stands for Collaborative for Academic and Social and Emotional Learning. And as you take a look at this circle, this representation, you can see classrooms is where it starts. So we are working with your children, we are working with your students at school to help them deal with these emotions. And so we have our schools, but now we're reaching out to you guys, our families and our community, to be able to help support you with these things that are going on, especially in light of the pandemic. And today we're going to focus specifically on that self-awareness and self-management. So being self-aware, like with our feeling thermometer, being able to identify how we are feeling in the moment.
Okay, good. So what would be some examples or some illustrations of how we try to help children, as well as today, giving parents some tools and strategies on how to kind of manage it when you're getting just to that point of boiling, you're at that hot temperature, and you know that if you don't do something, it's not going to end well for you or your child.
Yeah, well, one thing you can do, you can even start with this particular strategy as young as the age of 5, is teaching them about the brain and how it works. Now, you don't have to go into all of the nitty-gritty details because not many of us, we're all lay people, most of us, with regards to how our brain works. But if you take the hand as your model, and you think of your hand as your brain, and we have our brain stem and we have our limbic system, we're gonna then have our cortex. And so our limbic system is where in that area lies our fight or flight. We've heard that phrase before. And that's where so many of our emotions are kept, and our cortex helps to regulate those emotions. And so when we're thinking about our cortex, we have our prefrontal cortex here right at the front of our brain. It helps us to make those decisions, those appropriate decisions. But from time to time, things are not going quite the way that we want them to go, and those emotional buttons may be being pushed, and we feel that feelings thermometer getting higher and higher and higher, and then all of a sudden we flip our lid. And so when that happens, our fight or flight system gets offline, and it's ready to just go crazy. And that's true for us as adults, it's true for us as children. And so if we are able to use this as a model to explain to our kids, you know, it's okay. It happens to all of us. And sometimes we might be feeling like, oh my goodness, we're starting to not feel so good, and our cortex is starting to want to get offline, and our lid is about to flip. So how are we going to regulate that and keep that in check when we start to feel that happening? So there's so many things that we can do. So teaching them about the brain, but also taking the time to maybe take a break. Help the situation de-escalate. Sometimes we can't deal with what's going on right in that moment, and we need to just step away. And that's true for all of us. You as a parent, as a caregiver, and the children too. And so one thing we might need to do is just to step away and say, you know, I just need a little bit of time to myself right now so that I can breathe. And breathing is another great tool. So if you go online, and I think we actually have some resources we're going to be able to share with the families. There are some great breathing techniques that we can do. There's so many different ones out there to just help calm your body and bring you back down to that regulated state where your feelings thermometer is no longer up here, and you're ready to just have that discussion and that conversation about what's going on and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to take a pause here to check with my people to see if we have any questions yet. Okay, so you know that if something is burning in your mind and you want to know what an answer is, you got to let us know. So please remember and be mindful that we are taking questions at any point. So I want to kind of share a quote, or I guess it's a quote from Maya Angelou, who says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's powerful. So as we're talking about getting to that point of flipping your lid, I like that, flip. We all flip out at some point or time, I'm sure. But the point is that you have to be able to draw yourself back in and de-escalate. And sometimes it requires the other person who's caused that emotion to arise to maybe do something. So one of the things that a person can do is apologize. How about that for a concept? Actually apologize. And being a former principal, one of the things that I used to share with my teachers all the time was, okay, so maybe it wasn't always the student. Sometimes as adults, we may need to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for causing you to have to behave the way that you did. So it's pretty interesting. And some of the best ways to say I'm sorry, these are just some stems where you can say I'm sorry for and give the reason. Because a lot of times people just say I'm sorry and it's like empty.
So
what are
true.
you sorry for?
Yes.
Be more specific. Or you can say this is wrong because I may have done something. Maybe it wasn't you. And that makes it not so personal, but you're being human. You're humanizing yourself and letting the other person know, being an adult or a child, that, you know what, I'm going to take ownership of this.
Yeah, right.
And that's okay.
Right.
Or in the future, I will try to be better or do different or whatever that might be. And also ask for forgiveness.
Yes.
That's just the right thing to do sometimes. You don't, as adults, as teachers, as parents, as community members, we're not always right.
Very true.
And sometimes we feel like we're right and we're very staunch in our opinions, but it's okay to say, you know what, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't get it right.
You got
and
it.
when you apologize, again, going back to people remember how they feel. And that gives people a inner glow, an inner feeling that's warmth and says that, you know what, you cared enough to apologize to me. And so I'm going to care enough to extend the same thing. So I think that's really important, especially as parents and as teachers and educators and as community members. Oftentimes when we are in the same company, sometimes something may be said or something done that really irritates us or gets us upset. And it goes instantly to the emotions.
Yes.
And we talk about that being healthy emotionally. Sometimes we have to step back and realize that, you know what, maybe they didn't know.
Very true.
Same thing with kids. A lot of times kids are just learning. They don't know everything that's right or wrong, although we're teaching them constantly, but still, we still have to guide them and give them strategies and tools along the way. And so I think we do a pretty good job at that. We're not perfect.
We're trying.
But we're working on it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very grateful for that. And we have people like Ashley that's helping train us, our teachers, our others employees to be more accepting and more conscious of making sure that we're listening to people, we're being active listeners, because you can listen and then you can actually hear. So that's two different concepts that we could talk about too. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I just want to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying.
Okay.
As adults, sometimes it can be a challenge for us to accept that we made a mistake and to admit that to a child. And so as adults, we have to take the high road.
Yes.
Because as parents, they are their first teacher. And as a parent, you will continue to be your child's teacher for the rest of their life.
Yes.
So all the more important for you to model how you want your child to be, and so they can be successful in their relationships in the future. So it's essential that you reflect on that we all reflect on that, whatever our role is, and really take the time to make sure that we are aware of what's going on, that we acknowledge when we make a mistake, and we are specific about what that mistake was. And like you said, we ask for forgiveness because we're human, and it's going to happen, and it's okay. And that's I think the part that we have to understand and accept is it is okay.
It is okay.
Yeah.
Definitely okay. So as I reflect back onto some of the things that we talked about, when we talk about some of the strategies that we can use when we're flooded, you want to kind of share some strategies with them on that, please?
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about taking a break. So when we're talking about that, it looks different. It's going to look different depending on who you are. So whether you are the adult, the parent, the caregiver, whether you are a young child, whether you are a teenager, it's going to look a little bit different. but taking that break to kind of de-escalate. And when you do so, to not be brooding or focusing on, you know, how you felt like you were wronged or what occurred in that situation, but just to seriously be taking that time to just
gotta breathe.
Right, to breathe.
I like that.
And that might come out through, you know, meditation, through a walk by yourself, to listening to music that is positive music, and we don't want to, you know, get any of that.
That hard rap.
Oh
rock and
yeah,
roll.
exactly.
Okay.
So stuff that's going to, you know, help soothe you.
Yes.
And so, and that's what you need to think about. What is it that helps to soothe you when you're feeling stressed? You know, maybe you need a hot shower or a hot bath, but something to just kind of, you know, help to calm your body. And the same is true for our kiddos. So when we're talking about little ones, we sometimes, they struggle with doing this on their own. So as a caregiver, you're going to need to be their prefrontal cortex. You're going to need to be that part for them to help them, you know, get back online and be able to deal with those emotions that are occurring. And some of that might happen, it might happen regularly until they are able to do it independently. And so that could be giving them a soft toy to cuddle. It could be giving them a stress ball to be flexing with. It could be, you know, giving them a coloring book. And then with our teenagers, you know, they might need to go out and shoot some hoops. Maybe they need to, you know, play some video games, and maybe, you know, even those kind of ones that we don't prefer, maybe get some of that stress and frustration out, because it's something that they enjoy and can help them, you know, decompress and get back online and be ready to have that conversation, because that's the key. In order to repair those relationships, those challenges that maybe the two of you were facing, you have to have that ability to have that conversation and repair that.
Pull back. Thank you. I know that we have given our audience a lot of information today, and hopefully it's information that they will take with them and utilize these strategies, these tools that we've shared today, because we know that they work if we actually put a little work into them. So we're almost to the end here, but I wanted to share a couple of other things. So if you go to the district website and you go to the equity page, you will find there a couple of items. You're going to find actually the PowerPoint for today that we kind of went over, but you'll also find the parent engagement notebook that we've created, and it's interactive. And so you can give yourself a time to do a scavenger hunt. Go through the district website and find the answers to some of the things in here that will be very important and very useful for you as the years go on. And also we have there a Parent Academy guide that we created. So we want you to take a look at these pieces because they're really important. They give you valuable information and some strategies that you may not have realized. And as we come to a close, I also want to share this. So because some of you have listened in, didn't get any questions, but that's okay because we will be doing this again. You have listened in. If you were listening, please call 772-564-3100, and that is Mrs. Judy Smith, my administrative assistant, and the first 10 callers will be told how to get a surprise or a little gift for listening in, because we are very appreciative of your time. So that brings us to the end of our first session of our Virtual Parent Academy. Thank you again, Ms. Dowdell, for being here with us. We're so pleased to have been able to give you some information on social emotional learning and mental health, and we hope that we see you again next time. Bye-bye.